This is NBC Nightly News, Friday, October 12th. Reported by John Chancellor.
Good evening. Today was another day which will get into the history books. The president has made his decision on his choice of a man to replace Spiro Agnew as vice president. And the U.S. Court of Appeals has ruled decisively against Mr. Nixon's position on his secret White House tapes. Both of these are historic events. The president returned to the White House today from Camp David, having made his vice presidential decision at dawn today. At 9 o'clock this evening, Eastern Daylight Time, Mr. Nixon will go on television from the East Room in the White House before an audience made up of the leaders of Congress, the cabinet, and foreign diplomats to announce his decision. The man's name will then be considered by both houses of Congress. There was a torrent of speculation today about Mr. Nixon's choice. House Republican leader Gerald Ford is running strongly in the speculation sweepstakes, followed by Governor Nelson Rockefeller, former Secretary of State William Rogers, Chief Justice Warren Burger, Governor Ronald Reagan, and back in the pack, former Governor John Connally and NATO Ambassador Donald Rumsfeld. But nobody really knows, and it was said this afternoon that Mrs. Nixon herself doesn't know. Here's more from Tom Brokaw.
After returning from Camp David, President Nixon asked Senate and House Republican leaders Hugh Scott and Gerald Ford to a meeting to discuss confirmation procedures in Congress. Senator Barry Goldwater showed up at the White House as well. There was no official explanation for his visit. Apparently, President Nixon did not tell his visitors the name of his nominee. Senator Scott reported only that Mr. Nixon commented, "My choice might be somewhat of a surprise to some." That wasn't much of a clue, but it did inspire more second-guessing, and it seemed to eliminate some of the early favorites, such as John Connally. But in this uncertain atmosphere, where speculation has reached nearly the saturation point, not everyone could agree even on that. There is an incredible range of names afloat, and some of the reasoning is no less than bizarre. However, judging by all reliable indicators, the name of the president's nominee still is a closely held secret. Perhaps only the president himself knows for sure at this point. There will be a sizable audience in the East Room for tonight's broadcast, members of Congress, the cabinet, the diplomatic corps, and so on. And while this historic moment was being prepared today, Spiro Agnew was in the vice president's office, cleaning out his desk, so to speak. Tom Brokaw, NBC News at the White House.
In the matter of the secret White House tapes, the president lost a court decision today and seems to have lost it definitively. The U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington ruled 5-1, with one judge abstaining. The court ruled that the president must turn his disputed secret tapes over to Judge John Sirica so that Judge Sirica can listen to them in his chambers to see if they have evidence of criminal acts. This is a defeat for the president, and here's more on the story from Carl Stern at the courthouse.
The president's basic argument was that he alone could decide what, in the national interest, the courts could hear. It is that doctrine which the court's five-man majority flatly rejected. The court said it could not agree with the president's contention that supplying the tapes would threaten the continued existence of the presidency as a functioning institution. It said even the chief executive is subject to the mandate of law. Here's what it decided. The grand jury will not necessarily hear everything. The president must turn over all the materials requested except those relating to the national defense or foreign relations. Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, however, may dispute those withholdings if he thinks the president is abusing the privilege. As to the other matters, the president may signify those he believes are irrelevant or a little bit too spicy or otherwise privileged as confidential. Judge Sirica then is to determine privately in his chambers whether the material is needed or not. On that point, the court expressed its own opinion. It said that Special Prosecutor Cox had made a uniquely powerful showing that the subpoenaed recordings contain evidence critical to the grand jury's decision as to whether and whom to indict, and that presidential claims of privilege cannot stand in the way.
Chancellor in New York, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Are you certain, Carl, that this now will be appealed by the president's lawyers to the Supreme Court?
John, I'm sorry, our connection here is not a good one. I think you are asking me basically what happens next, what the president's lawyers do.
That's right.
And it is this. Under the court's ruling, the losing party, that is to say the president, has 5 days to decide what to do. Presumably he will appeal to the Supreme Court. However, I would point something out to you. It's not at all clear what the president will do if the High Court declines to take up the case. The president's own supporters in the court may think it better just to leave matters as they are if there are not enough votes on the High Court to overturn the Court of Appeals decision. That way there would be no Supreme Court ruling against